All right, for the first part of this assignment, we are going to create a academic seminar calendar in using Google Calendar. When you get an account with Google, like you already have your Oakland Christian account, a calendar is already essentially created for you, or it's available. It's a big blank canvas. It's already there, but we are just going to uh, add a new piece to it. So to get started, you'll want to open up a browser. As always with the Google apps, I always recommend Chrome, but you can use Firefox, Internet Explorer, Safari, whichever one you prefer most. You'll notice maybe that I'm in an incognito tab here. This is the same way that all the lab computers default. They log in an incognito tab in an effort to prevent as much of your information that you input being available to the next person who uses that computer in the lab. So again, we're just going to try to mimic that. You can go to google.com. You can also use shortcuts for any product like drive.google.com. You can use mail.google.com, docs.google.com. But from here, we just would sign in, and I'll enter my password. And we'll want to select the Google Apps icon, little 9 squares, and then select Google Calendar. Now, Google Calendar, this is your Google Calendar, by the way. It's yours is going to look a little bit, it should look pretty similar, except it won't be probably populated here unless you've already been using it. But it defaults to the week view. I prefer the week, month, or agenda views. I don't really like the day or 4 days. But again, it's all personal preference. However you want to use it is best for you. So you'll see here we've got day, week. You can look at all of June at once. You can just look at the next 4 days. The thing I really like about this agenda is it just kind of shows you like what are my upcoming deadlines, what are my upcoming appointments. So it's kind of a nice way to look at just a quick view of all the things I've got coming up. You'll notice over here on the left it says My Calendars and Other Calendars. These are the calendars that I've created. I've got my personal calendar. I've already got one for academic seminar. I've got the test calendar and a separate reminders calendar. Down here, these are examples of calendars that have been shared with me. For example, the drama calendar is shared with me by Miss Lichty. It helps make sure that I know what's going on and when. And I believe she's also given me access to edit that calendar so I can add events and things like that. And the tech committee shared with me by Mr. Ragsdale. Again, all this is just stuff that I have access to. It helps keep me showing up to appointments on time and making sure that I have all of my ducks in a row, so to speak. For our purposes today, we're going to go over to My Calendars, and we're going to click this little drop-down arrow and select Create New Calendar. This is where you can input all the details of your calendar, all the basics. You're going to want to name your calendar Academic Seminar dash and then your first and last name. So for this one, I'll just put in Jane Smith. Under description, you may choose to just leave this blank. It's entirely up to you. If you want to describe your calendar or maybe even make plans for how you're going to use it, that's fine. The only people who I would say need a description are people who are going to have a calendar that maybe is outside the guidelines of the rubric that you'll see on the Schoology assignment page. My rubric says that your weekly assignments should be pretty well equally spaced, meaning if on week 1 you're completing about 100 points and week 2 you're completing about 100 points, we shouldn't see 3-4 weeks off and then you complete or schedule 300 to 400 points the weeks after that. Or some people, maybe want to do 500 points off right off the bat, and then take 5 weeks off, something along those lines. Now, if I was just grading it without an explanation, I would mark those people down because their work is not spread out very evenly. If, however, you think that's something that's necessary, you think that's how you work best, or you have some other rationale, maybe you've got some schedules in other classes, I don't know, maybe you've got driver's training particular weeks, or whatever the case may be, this is a good place to justify, provide your rationale, or explain how you intend to use your calendar. It's a good way to plead, or a good place to plead your case for why you shouldn't be marked down and why this is the best way to organize it. So, again, you may have nothing there at all if you're going to follow my guidelines for how it should be used, but if you need to make a justification, description is a great place to do it. Under location, you're going to want to put in Auburn Hills, or you could put in the city where you live, Waterford, Clarkston, Rochester, Davisburg, wherever it is. Under calendar time zone, you're going to want to make sure that you have the United States selected, and you're going to want to make sure that you're in the right time zone, that we are in the Eastern time zone in Michigan. Some students last year noticed some issues with time zone. I believe their Schoology account was set to some African time zone, and they were noticing some real problems. For example, if Mrs. Smileski gave you a midnight deadline to complete an assignment, but your time zone is Africa, you may only be able to complete your assignments up until about 9 or 10 o'clock Eastern time, because it is 12 o'clock in Africa at 9 or 10 o'clock here Eastern time zone. So again, really make sure that your time zones are set for Eastern time, because it can cause a lot of unnecessary confusion if you don't have it set to our time zone. Below that, we have this option here to share the calendar with others. You could mark and select make this calendar public, or you could share the calendar with everyone at Oakland Christian School. I would not recommend either of those options, especially for a personal agenda or a personal calendar like this one. I wouldn't recommend it for the same reasons I wouldn't recommend sharing your agenda on Facebook or Twitter or anywhere else where a wide public might have access to it. There's really no advantage in telling people that you may not know, or people who you may not want knowing where you're going to be, when you're going to be there, and maybe even who you're going to be there with. It's just good practice both in the classroom but also in your personal life to keep your agenda on a need-to-know basis. The fourth part of this unit, or this assignment for Google Calendar, is going to ask you to share your calendar with me. However, at this point in the process, I would ask that you do not share your calendar with me. I only want you to share the calendar when it is ready to be graded. And at this point, the first step in the process, it is far from being ready from being graded. So in the fourth video, it'll be super quick. I'm just going to show you how to get back to this screen and share it with me. And that, again, is how you will submit this assignment. So for this video, we've got our academic seminar and our name. We've got our location, a description if necessary. We've got United States and Eastern time zones selected, and now we can just hit create calendar because we are done with the first portion. To pick up on the next piece, click on video 2.